thank you for meeting me here in Warsaw. I want to know what the hell is happening in this country, because it's nearly, I think it's 10,855 drop in publishers between 2008 2018. Those are just astonishing numbers. What's been happening?
Well, all sorts of things. Poland is a pretty specific country. We once were a poster child of the Watchtower. Like in the 80s and 90s, Poland was one of the most, if not the most, growing country in the world, and it was set as an example of what people do in Poland so good that we have so much growth. But the reality was that Poland just got through a very rough period of time. The Iron Wall was broken just recently, and we just recently got our own government. So Polish people were clinging to every bit of hope they could get, and JWs exploited that need.
So you think that the collapse of communism might have had something to do with it, perhaps an opportunity for Polish people to affirm their Western identity with this kind of new American religion?
Maybe. It might be. It was a time where many people from the West came over, and people were weren't very cautious back then. They just listened to everybody who told them some things, and Jehovah's Witnesses were very good at, like I said, exploiting those needs and telling people exactly what they needed to hear, that there will be a better world, a world without all those things they just suffered in the last decades. So there was this big growth, but then when suddenly the living standard here improved a lot, it's still not very great, but it did improve over the last few decades. I think people became disillusioned with this perfect world that the witnesses try to paint. And on the other hand, over the last, I think, 15 years or so, there were many groups of ex-JWs who were very keen to spread the word opposite to what the organization wants to give, and give people information that Watchtower wants to be retracted.
Sure.
So I think it was 2002 or 3 that the first website that I know of, watchtower.org.pl, so it was just a PL added at the end of the official domain name. It was very clever. They made this website where you could find materials about what is wrong with Watchtower's teachings.
Interesting.
So it was back then already that people started to, a movement started to grow to oppose what Watchtower is doing to people. And this went on, and I came to this scene a bit late, because I started to wake up from the indoctrination 5 years ago. So it was already an ongoing effort, but I just joined this effort and tried to make it even better.
So you mentioned that the collapse of the Iron Curtain had something to do. I'm interested to know how did the Jehovah's Witness religion enter your life?
It was a bit unusual, I think, because my parents are not Jehovah's Witnesses. They never were. My mom started to study with one of her friends, and it went for 1 or 2 years, I think, but then she stopped. Until recently, I never knew why she stopped. She never told me. But at the same time, my 6 years older sister started to study with some other people from the congregation, and she became very interested. I think she was in 8th grade, so she was maybe 15 years old, something like that. And she dragged me in, so to speak, and I was like, they told me that I have to go to the meeting, so I went. They told me that I have to go to the ministry, so I went. I was
You just did whatever you were told, basically.
I was that kind of person back then, and it took some years until I made the truth my own, like they like to tell you. And after that, I became really active in the organization. I very early became a pioneer, then a ministerial servant, which is very interesting because I didn't want to really. It was like out of the blue. The elders invited me over to the small room. I thought I did something wrong, maybe, and they told me that I was just appointed a ministerial servant. I was like, what? Yeah, so we then went with Lena, who I met, my current wife. I met her back then, like, we met first almost 20 years ago, and we got married, and we got to serve in another congregation where the need was great. So, and my parents still weren't Jehovah's Witnesses, but they also weren't opposing us. Like, I think they thought that maybe because of all the rules that JWs have, they would maybe guard us.
So they saw it as a positive thing.
Yeah, because obviously witnesses don't smoke, they don't swear, at least officially. They tried not to drink too much officially, again, and all sorts of other things. So on surface, it seems good that your kids are in this kind of religion which has those high standards, high moral standards. So I think that was why my mother never really opposed us. My father was a bit different. He didn't oppose, but he was, a few times at least, he was vocal about how he doesn't like that I spend more time going from door to door than, for example, in my school. But again, I was already drawn in, like 100%. There was no turning back for me. And so even when they did raise some concerns that I don't want to go to the college, I want to go to the ministry school, I wouldn't listen anymore.
In Croatia, I don't know I know every country is different, but in Croatia, there's a very strong kind of family-oriented culture. Is family a big thing for Polish people, or not?
Yeah, I think it is. Well, it differs from family to family, of course. Some bonds are closer, so some are not so close. But obviously, yeah, the family matters a lot.
Okay. And you mentioned that you were appointed a servant. You were telling me earlier as well, an elder. So what was that like?
Well, it was interesting. Again, I was appointed to be an elder at a very young age, and even before that, I tried to do as much as I could because I really, really believed that this is the truth. Like, it wasn't some kind of game for me. I really wanted to please Jehovah and wanted to do as much as I can because I'm young, I have strength, I can do some things. So I was like at the congregations, I was in the sound department. I went to some building projects. I tried to get into the ministry school for men. This was before the current school, because there was like 3 or 4 changes to that school. I tried to get there, but the prerequisite was that you are not married or you are not engaged. This other part, they didn't tell me. So I got engaged with Lena, and we waited 3 years with our marriage because I hoped that I will get the invitation to the school, and I never got it. And after 3 years, our congregation's coordinator just was fed up with this because everyone was talking how we are 3 years after our engagement, and we obviously did commit something. They thought, and we didn't, but they thought we did, and this was dangerous for us, so we had to do something. and he made a call to our branch office in Nadarzyn in Poland, and they basically told him, let the guy be married, there's no point in him waiting. So yeah, I wasted 3 years because I thought I was going to school, which a circuit overseer told me that I could get an invitation while being engaged. So yeah, it was an
odd rule, wasn't it? Because I obviously went through ministerial training school, and they almost acknowledge that it kind of amounts to celibacy, the same rule in the priesthood where you can't do certain things if you're married. Talk me through your progression into being an elder. And
So we moved with Lena a few times. Like first, I went to her congregation even before we were married. Then we together moved to Wojcieszów, which is at the south of the Poland. And in this congregation, which is also where my sister lives, that's why we moved there, I become an elder. So this was your typical small town, very small town congregation. It was like 5,000 people in this town. They obviously needed elders because like there were only a few of them, and most of them were in their age. Didn't really
they were old, quite old.
They were quite old. So they needed help, and I think I was 24 when elders first gave their recommendation to appoint me, and the circuit overseer didn't agree. He told that I'm too young, and there isn't a written rule anywhere, but an unwritten rule is that you have to be at least, I think, 26, something like that. So I had to wait those 2 years, and I think it was 2012 where they appointed me an elder in this congregation. I was also a full-time pioneer at this time, but it was too much for me. So shortly after, I resigned from the pioneering because I just couldn't handle 70 hours. It was even at the time where I was trying to be very, very active. I had guilt all the time because I couldn't get to that 70-hour mark month by month. So yeah, they just made me elder, and I think I really liked it because I liked to help people, and I also I think liked the public speaking part. Like at the beginning, it was frightening for me, but over time, speech after speech, I got accustomed to it, and I even liked it because I tried to make my speeches like quite interesting. I've always dig up some details that weren't in the script to make it even more interesting. So basically I was in this congregation an elder for a short while.
How long?
Maybe a year, maybe shorter. It wasn't a full year, because at this point we were already 3 years in that congregation, and because we were full-time pioneers with Lena as well, we knew every house at this territory. Like we knocked on the house and we knew who would open, because if you go there so often and the territory is so little, it's no use. So we wanted change, and the circuit overseer told us that there is this other congregation called Jehovah, and they have only 2 elders, I think. They desperately need elders. And they also need young people, because the young people in that congregation need help to get in the truth, because they are not very willing to do. So yeah, we happily accepted that and moved to Jehovah to help them. And that was when my faith started to crumble. So they didn't anticipate that this move will actually be the start of my downfall as a JW.
And that was why you stood down, was it? Because your faith crumbled?
Yeah, because in Jehovah I met this Jacek person who was also an elder, and he was very, very. He's also still at the JW officially, by the way, but they didn't disfellowship him for whatever reason. but he is mentally out totally. So he was very, very deep into Bible. Like he was analyzing the Greek alphabet, the Greek script of the Greek scriptures, and the Hebrew one, and he showed me all kinds of verses that are interesting. He wasn't doing any apostate stuff like Watchtower likes to speak. We were two elders with our wives who were discussing deep spiritual things. Like it was the most wholesome you could possibly believe in the organization.
Let's get together and let's talk about the Bible.
Yeah. Because not drink alcohol or do like nasty stuff or watch some television. Let's talk about the Bible. So we did for hours sometimes. And after those conversations, I went home and at first I was very skeptical. Like we have all the food from the faithful slaves, so we don't need more. And if you say that there's something wrong with this food because the Bible says something else, that's obviously your cognitive dissonance starts to kick in. But I gave myself the permission to look into this because I thought there were new lights all the time. So maybe, just maybe this was arrogant, but maybe we found out something that will eventually become new light. This was, by the way, about partaking the memorial, about the two hopes, the earthly hope and the heavenly hope. We basically realized that
was total nonsense.
That's total nonsense. According to the Bible, there is only one hope, the heavenly hope. The heavenly one. There is no mention of earthly hope anywhere in the Greek scriptures. So it was April of 2014, the memorial, and Jacek partook in the memorial. It was like,
what was that like?
Mind-blowing for everyone. Like, how could this person do that? And he felt great. We felt miserable because we wanted to. We already knew that this was the right thing to do.
You and your wife?
Yes.
Right, yeah.
Yes. But we didn't have enough courage to do that. Even when the bread passed over and the wine came in, I told Lena, maybe we at least the wine. But we didn't have the courage.
Why were you more interested in the wine?
You got me here, all right. Yeah, but when we went back to, like, even after the memorial, already there was a murmur. Like, some people watched Jacek, like, what is going on? Because he never had heavenly hope, and now he wants to go to heaven. What? And one person in particular, approached us, and I, with my whole naivety and believing that all people are good, I have this kind of attitude towards people. I told her that, we found out those very interesting things in the Bible that maybe, just maybe, everybody should partake in the memorial. That was what I said in that evening on the meeting hall. So just the very next day, I have a knock on my door, and this is this person that I spoke to, this woman. And she asked me some more questions, like, why do you think so? And do you think the slave is wrong? And, well, I still thought that she was just interested, so I obviously spilled the beans for her, what I think, what do we think, and so on.
She was interrogating you.
She was interrogating me. She probably did record what I was saying, because later I heard my exact words from the elders, like 2 weeks later. So imagine our surprise, where just, I think, 2 weeks later, I have a call from our circuit overseer, and he says, Maciej, we and this other brother are just passing by.
We've just realised that we're going to be near your house on a certain day.
Exactly, and they weren't even in the city.
What are the chances of that happening?
they weren't even in the city. They were in the other territory. So we were just passing by. Can we just visit you and drink some coffee? I was, of course you can. So. Again, I was still young and naive, and I very regretted that I didn't record that conversation, because They obviously sat down, we made them coffee. The other guy was like, so how did you learn the truth? You mean the usual intro for the conversation with a JW. So they tried to make them look friendly, themselves look friendly. And then it all started like, Maciej, we've heard some very disturbing things about what you believe. And I was like, what exactly? That you believe that everyone should partake the memorial and some other things. And then also, we've heard that you spoke with your sister and you told her that you shouldn't always listen to the faithful slave and you should broaden your views. And I was like, how do you know what I said to my sister? To my...
Not your spiritual sister, your actual sister.
Yeah, my actual sister.
Yeah.
And because we weren't in the same town anymore, but we did use like messaging system to communicate. And later it turned out that my sister had no part of this, but this overseer already made his investigation. He went to my former congregation. He interrogated several brothers and sisters about what I said to them, one of which was my sister and her husband, who then he approached to actually, without my sister's knowledge, get her messaging history with me, dig through all of it, and find some juicy bits that could be used up against me.
So your circuit overseer recruited your brother-in-law to go into your sister's messaging history to find out whether you'd said anything incriminating.
Yeah.
It's just astonishing.
I don't know how it's in Croatia, but there is this secret of correspondence law that you cannot, if you are not entitled to, you cannot get and read someone's.
You can't spy on people, but people have basic rights to their own privacy and their own data.
And he also interrogated other people from the congregation. He then misrepresented what those people said, like this very nice sister who was very, very devoted to the organization. She said some things about me, about that I was talking with her, but in good faith. And she did underline that there wasn't anything apostate. And he totally misrepresented her words to the point that when she did hear about what he said, she just cried because she was misrepresented. And that was, again, the same situation with the other elder from that congregation. He approached this other elder that I served with in the previous congregation, and he said something along the lines of, "Did you hear that? Have you heard that Maciej had those really troublesome thoughts and beliefs?" And he said, "Really? Well, that's very alarming. That he has something like this. I hope everything will be all right." And he took those words that this is alarming, and he said that people in your congregation are alarmed of your beliefs.
One person has said this is alarming, and therefore the whole congregation thing is alarmed by this.
But this he was alarmed because this overseer told him something.
Right.
So he wasn't alarmed before.
He wasn't alarmed by you. He was alarmed at the circuit overseer stirring things.
But he used that as an evidence that people are alarmed. So this was the kind of investigation that he made, and obviously that was proof that we are not fit to be elders anymore. Me and this other person. He was next. They went to me first, then he went to him, and then they went to speak to the elders. And again, I told him that I still love Jehovah. I still want to serve organization. It's not like we have some apostate thinking. We still want to be here. We just have some doubts about some of the teachings, but we are willing to cast that away.
So you're not interested in getting on the platform and telling everybody this is what we should now be.
Exactly. And if we stepped over the line and maybe said some things which we shouldn't, we can back down and not do it anymore. Just let us meet with the elders and let's together discuss, because we already did discuss that before with elders, and they said, okay, as long as you don't speak to anyone about your beliefs, that's fine. You can obviously study and have your own ways of thinking. But then they said, okay, maybe someday we will arrange a meeting. And after they said that, they immediately went to the elders, because a meeting was already arranged, but I wasn't invited. Yeah, a few days later, we weren't elders anymore. And it was interesting because we felt really violated by the situation. Like, I think especially Lena even, because this other guy, not the overseer, but this other guy that was there, he was so condescending. Like, he was speaking to us like we were 5 years old. Like, he said to my wife, Lena, do you really think that we should behave that way? In this kind of way. Like, they treated us like we were basically children.
Naughty
children, exactly. Yeah. We felt very violated. So obviously what I did, like an exemplary witness, I wrote to the branch office that something's wrong here, that people shouldn't be treated that way. And even if we did something wrong when we spoke to other people about our dads, okay, but this person, this circuit overseer, obviously overstepped his authority here by coercing other people to divulge our private messages and so on. You know what answer I got from Nadajan? Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. A month later, the elders just received a letter of confirmation that I am not. I think it's confirmation of deletion, something like that.
Yeah.
That I'm not an elder anymore, and Jacek is an elder and isn't an elder anymore. So again, I wrote to them, but okay, I accept that decision. Maybe I did something wrong, but still, please, at least look into this person, because he didn't behave like a good circuit overseer should, and he may mistreat other people if he continues to behave that way. And again, absolute radio silence. 1 year later, I actually rang to the branch office. I was already mentally out, but I wanted to have closure on this matter. So I rang to this to branch office, and I actually recorded that conversation. We spoke for a while with this person. I told him that there is this case. He found the records of this case, and he said, yeah, I see that you didn't receive any answer to your letters, but were you really anticipating any response? And I just laughed at this point. I just burst in laugh.
You were just writing letters, not expecting a response.
Yeah, that's my hobby. I just write letters in my spare time.
Dear President Trump, I know you will never reply to this letter, but here's 2 pages of,
And you know what's funny? It's actually more probable that President Trump would respond to my letter than the governing
He'd at least
body.
tweet you, wouldn't he?
Yeah, he would tweet me at least.
Wow.
So that was my journey. And after that, I was so angry of how we were treated, and I know that other people were treated that way. And we obviously, that was the tipping point. Like, up until this point, we still believed this is truth, and we just found some discrepancies that Jehovah will straight out. But after this, that was the tipping point when we let ourselves to believe that this might not be the truth. So that was the year that I decided that I won't do something about it, because I was for 14 years, I was trying to convince people that this is the truth. And I thought that I have like a moral obligation to at least try to convince people otherwise, because I put my word into the world. I thought this was the truth, so now I will try at least to help people see that it isn't.
But when you say it was a tipping point, did you end up fading, or did you disassociate?
Mm-hmm.
What?
Well, this was still a process. That was 2014, spring 2014.
So when were you deleted as an elder? What year?
Spring 2014.
Okay, and
it was May.
And you say there was a process, so you presumably you felt more free to investigate your beliefs.
Yeah.
So at what point would you say there was like a break from the organization completely?
So the whole 2014 was me studying. Like I studied like crazy. Like I read everything that there is to read, not only from the organization, but also like again the Bible in Greek and Hebrew when I could translate some things by my own. And then it was very interesting because 2014 was the international convention in Indianapolis in the United States. And I was invited because even before this whole situation, I did apply to go to the convention.
And they forgot about your...
Yeah, in the form, there was a line that if you are not fit, like to be a delegate anymore, you have to tell the elders that you could no longer go. And I actually did go to elders and said to them, well, you see, this is the situation, you know what it is. What should I do? Should I go? Can I go? And the elders, this one elder especially, he was this older guy who was in this congregation for many, many years. He was very lenient on various topics. So he said, well, let's just forget about this. Like, what's done has been done. Your wife's still a pioneer. So even though you're not qualified anymore, she is, and you're married, so you can go. So I actually went with all those doubts to international convention. And you know what? After getting back, I actually lapsed a bit because there was so much love. And like
when you say you lapsed, you lapsed back into the right
JW religion, because
so you loved all the sign waving and all of the
not only the sign waving, they put so much effort to make us feel welcome, and like it was extraordinary for me.
Was it expensive to go?
It was, the ticket, I think, and the hotel, which was mandated by the organization. It was, I think those were most expensive things. It wasn't very expensive because even some pioneers went from our congregation.
But would it have been cheaper if you'd have arranged it yourself?
Probably, yeah. But it wasn't an option, really.
No.
Because you would be an outsider if you did.
Sure.
So I have pictures when I'm standing in front of Watchtower sign in New York, Brooklyn, because that was when they were closing Brooklyn, and I still had the opportunity to actually go there and see all the offices and whatnot. And for me, one point was like a really strong emotional point was when we visited Indianapolis Convention Center, and they sat us down in this auditorium. And a choir of people stood on the scene and started to sing kingdom songs.
Which songs?
I don't remember, but I have them recorded.
Some of them are very stirring, aren't they? Some of them are very emotional.
Yeah, but the way they did that, especially the second song was basically gospel style.
Yeah.
Even with the clapping at the end.
Sure, okay, yeah.
So I was so amazed by that, and I thought for a second that maybe, just maybe, in Poland we are so stiff and so clinging to all those little rules, and they broke all kinds of rules. We shouldn't sing like the false religion in the convention center. We shouldn't use kingdom halls for organizing parties, and they threw us stupidly big party for us in the kingdom hall with all this food and everything. In Poland, you would be like scolded and maybe not disfellowship, but it would be very bad if you try to do something like that.
You saw that in America they had a different culture and a different interpretation, perhaps, of the religion. Yeah.
And I thought that maybe it's just a Poland thing, that we just hit a brick wall here, and maybe the organization isn't like that. So I have this little lapse when I actually messaged Jacek that maybe we shouldn't discuss those kinds of things anymore because it may be dangerous for us. But that was very quick. So quick, in fact, that I think in January or February 2015, it was the first time I used the word cult, or in Polish sect, to referring to the religion.
And what changed from
again, we just, even though I said we shouldn't really discuss, we still obviously did discuss a lot. We in our spare time, and then we met together and read and discussed things, and then JW broadcasting happened. So at this time, and with broadcasting, it was very fun situation, because obviously they went with all those golden rings into the television, and Jacek was like, "What? You cannot do that! It's not spiritual to do these kind of things." And I actually defended them. That, well, look, it's America. They have their rings. They're
only Americans. Give them some slack. Yeah.
Give them some slack. He probably received that from his grandparent or something. Yeah. But then Samuel Heard went onto the television and he flashed his golden Rolex. And that was when I got angry, because I saw that watch. I didn't even look it up on Reddit. I just went to Google and searched for gold Rolex, and I actually found this watch model, and I saw the price, and I collapsed. I said, okay, Jacek, you were right about the rings, and the rings are only the beginning. So 2015 was our full awakening. But still, it was a process, because we tried to make it very gradual, so we could communicate with our family, with Lena's family, and maybe try to convince them that this is not the truth. So we still went to the meetings for a couple of months. We still went to ministry for a couple of months. I think the last time I went to ministry was May or June 2015. But we tried to discuss with my mother-in-law, with Lena's brothers and sisters. Unfortunately, we didn't get anywhere. They did listen to us, but on the very next day, all that they could remember is that we talked bad about the organization, and no arguments would stick. So 1 year later, when we met our Lena's mother for the last time, she basically gave us this feeling that she will stick to the organization no matter what, even if what we said is true. It's still the truth for her, and they will be loyal to the rules.
So this was 2016.
Yes. So in August of 2016, we after this conversation, we wrote a letter, and we did leave.
So you and your wife both left at the same time?
Yes.
Wow. And to what extent do you think that the bullying behavior of your elders led to you leaving the organization?
I think that was, like I said, that was a tipping point for us, because up till this point, we only examined the teachings, which, again, we thought that maybe new light will come, or maybe we are wrong and something will adjust our way of thinking. Maybe Jehovah will bless us with something. But when we saw firsthand that the higher ups of the organization are not abiding to the rules and nobody is listening, and we write to Nadajan and nothing happens, that's when we allowed ourselves to think that maybe, just maybe, something is wrong more than what we initially thought. And again, that was a very long process. I actually remember my wife watching. I don't know if it wasn't probably your channel because she's not that well versed in English, but we had at the time already some Polish speaking channels, and she was watching those channels, and I would scoff at her. Like I would say, don't watch those people. Maybe they want to, maybe it's the Satan that wants us to fall apart from the truth. So don't do it by yourself. Don't get convinced. Maybe they are lying. So even then I was very nervous of maybe we are, again, it's the demons or something that are trying to pull us back from Jehovah. I wanted to have 100% certainty that we are right before I would do anything. And it was very hard for me. Like I said, she was faster to go through a posted material than I was. I was still afraid. That was the kind of indoctrination that is through your heads. Even if you are mistreated, you are still afraid to look into it or look into materials that are forbidden.
If your elders hadn't been so mean to you, do you think it's possible you might still be a Jehovah's Witness?
It is possible, although maybe it would just take longer. Because at this point, like I said, we already had this,
the JW
seed.
Broadcasting.
Yeah. And the seed was planted. Like this teaching of two hopes was undefendable. And what really shook us down was when we saw the numbers in the partakers increase year over year. It started, I think, in 2007, when the teaching actually changed in 2007, because before that they thought that gathering the partakers ended in 1935. And in 2007, I think they retracted that teaching and said that we are not sure if it ended and if then when. And from that year, the numbers started to go up. And when we noticed that, it was like epiphany for us, because it was maybe people from all over the world noticed the same thing that we did.
And then was it in 2011 when they said, of course, people could be mentally imbalanced?
Yeah.
That's why they're party.
Yeah. So we saw all this, and I think that even without those elders, sooner or later we would discover other things. And then, of course, in 2015, the Australia thing happened. We were at vacation with our other friends who were also out. Well, not physically out, but mentally. We had this small posted gathering at the beach, and I was like, because this was Australia time, so it was like 3 or 4 a.m. and I was not sleeping a little bit, translating into Polish like frantically to show them in the morning what has been said in every day, and especially when Jackson got into interrogation. I think when I saw Jackson, that was the last straw that brought the camel back.
Sure.
When I saw him lie about treating children, that they don't use corporal punishment for children, that they are not the sole authority, Jehovah's authority on earth, that it would be presumptuous. Yeah. That really struck my nerve. Like, I said, what? For 14 years, I was saying to people that you are. And there was nothing that literature would say that they aren't, or maybe they are doubts, and maybe it would be presumptuous. It was 100% closed deal. So that was something that tipped me off, like, for the final time.
You mentioned that your mum and dad aren't Jehovah's Witnesses, so presumably they're not shunning you.
Yeah, of course they aren't.
But
We actually have more contact now than before, because obviously before we were traveling the country.
Yeah, now you've got more time for them.
Yeah, and we actually we are building house together with
Right.
my parents. So
Okay.
at one point I decided that maybe we can afford to build a house, and we come up with our parents that maybe it would be a good idea to have like a double house. So we can live together. And in the beginning, I said that my mother was studying but stopped, and I never knew why. And after all this, I finally asked her what was the reason. And she told me something very interesting. She first stopped going to the Catholic Church because she thought that it was very, how do you say it? It was very stiff. It was very, like, they tell you when you have to stand up, and tell you when you have to sit down. There is no freedom there. And she didn't like that. She and initially witnesses lured her that you have a freedom here. You have your freedom in the truth. So she went to the meetings, and lo and behold, you have to stand up, you have to sit down, you have to pray in certain words, you have to use only specific songs, you cannot speak when you're not allowed, and so on. It was Catholic Church all over again for her. And that was what she said that threw her off, that she didn't want to get into another version of a religion that just has the stiff rules and there's nothing in there.
But I'm interested to know, obviously your parents aren't shunning you. How many people in your life who are important to you are shunning you because you left?
Well, at the point when we sent the letter, I lost everyone. Obviously, everyone that we previously knew, that we were friends with, just overnight stopped talking to us, deleted us from Facebook and whatnot. And with family, Lena has 3 sisters and 1 brother, and obviously parents. And from 3 years from now, they will still not talk to us at all. There were several occasions where we saw each other. One was like 2 years ago at the funeral of some extended family, non-JW family. We went to that funeral and they were there. They didn't even look at us, like we didn't exist. So much so that the extended family noticed and asked us after what is going on, like what's happened, why your mother is not speaking to you, and we let them know. So basically the whole extended family knows what's going on, but yeah, they refused to talk to us, even though we tried. We really tried hard to show them our reasoning, to show them that we are not the apostates that Watchtower tries to paint. We are not opposing Jehovah. We're trying to find what really is the truth, because that's what it's all about, right? But they just couldn't, for whatever reason, they just couldn't wrap their head around that concept that the truth is not in the place they always thought it is. So even we spent, like with my mother-in-law, I spent hours, one time even, I think, up until 1 or 2 a.m. to discuss some things. And she did agree to some things that I was telling her. But the day immediately after, she would just forget every argument and just be mad at me that I'm going against the slave, against the teachings. So yeah, the last time we saw her was actually very recently. We ran into her in a store, browsing for some furniture for our new home. and she approached us. She even hugged Marlene, but that was basically it. Like I personally felt, and I know that this may sound harsh, but she just needed that, so she took the opportunity to show her feelings. But when I asked her, why are we still doing this after 3 years? You know we are not coming back. And we can, if you want, I can do anything, if you want, so we can have at least a sliver of normal relationship. And she said that it will never be like that, because you left the truth and you know the rules. We cannot be like this anymore because you left Jehovah. So that really saddened me, because I hoped that maybe after those 3 years there would be some reasoning. She would notice some things. There were so many things that happened in those 3 years that maybe she would reconsider. But no. Like this cult has such strong grasp of the people's minds that until something happens, I think in many cases it is some kind of event, some kind of injustice, some kind of maybe even tragedy that makes people reconsider, and otherwise your brain is like locked and you cannot see the arguments. The cognitive dissonance is too big. So yeah, with my family, I have a sister, and she didn't shun us like totally after we left. We still had some kind of contact after that. She didn't agree with what I was doing with all the protests and whatnot, and probably that was what turned her off a little bit. And yeah, over time, our relationship loosened even more, and now we barely speak to each other. So yeah, I basically lost her as well.
Do you think that there's anything that you could say to your sister that would persuade her?
I've tried. I tried many things. You know, that was what got me in trouble in the first place, right? I tried to tell her that something is wrong, and I like to think that she recognizes that something is wrong. But again, there are stronger forces here that still keep her there. So she, even if she wanted to, at this point, it would be very, very hard for her to leave, even harder than we with Lena, I think, because she's in this town where everyone she knows is a witness, where all her husband's family are witnesses, and yeah, it would be pretty hard for her to wake up. I hope she will someday, but yeah, obviously it's out of my control, I think, at this point.
Do you think that the pain that you feel as a result of shunning has caused you to be as involved with protesting and activism?
Definitely, yes. I thought that this, because obviously people have various opinions, various beliefs, and who am I to judge those beliefs in most cases? But in this case, I saw firsthand that those beliefs of this particular group are harmful, are breaking apart families, are letting pedophiles roam around in congregations, are making people cast away their lives because of the blood transfusion ban. So this, all those things, and the shunning, especially because again I was involved firsthand. It was something that I have to live through. That was what made me do all those things, participate in all those protests, to so no one else, or at least if even one person wouldn't have to go through all those things, I would be happy.
So what would you say to the governing body in English if they were watching this video?
Hard to pick just one or two single thing. Well, I would say, dear governing body, you had all this power these years that you happily exploited and lived a very happy and eventful life with all the perks of being on the top, of being praised by others. But maybe it's just time to stop, to retire, and let those people who are willing to give up their lives for you, not for the God, but really for you. Maybe it's time to tell them that they could have their own lives and not be entangled in this mess. That I think you really know, like deep down, you know that something is not right, and that those teachings, like the blood ban, is just not right, but you're trapped. So I encourage you to do one thing right in your lives and set the record straight.
Okay, very good. A message to Polish Jehovah's Witnesses in Polish.
What I could say to the Polish Jehovah's Witnesses? Drodzy bracia, w 2012 roku zostało nam powiedziane, że w Polsce będzie 200 000 świadków. W związku z tym potrzeba bardzo dużo sal królestwa. Mamy rok 2019, a świadków nie jest 200 000, tylko chyba 115 i będzie coraz mniej. Bardzo polecam wam, żebyście przeanalizowali swoje wierzenia i upewnili się, czy na pewno ci ludzie, którzy masowo odchodzą od organizacji w tym momencie, są wstrętnymi odstępcami, czy może ludźmi, którzy poznali prawdę, tą prawdziwą prawdę o tym, co nas uczono. Sprawdźcie to sami, sprawdźcie to w swoich Bibliach, sprawdźcie swoje publikacje. Nie wchodźcie na stronę odstępców, przynajmniej nie od razu, jeśli tak uważacie. Sprawdzajcie to sami, bo jest to możliwe, żeby to zobaczyć. Sprawdźcie rok 75, co mówiono o tym. Sprawdźcie, czy zakaz transfuzji krwi ma poparcie w Biblii. Sprawdźcie, czy zakaz komunikowania się ze swoimi bliskimi ma poparcie w Biblii. I żyjcie sami dla siebie, a nie dla organizacji z Ameryki, która każe wam głosić, każe wam oddawać swoje życie na ołtarzu tej organizacji. Po prostu żyjcie dla siebie.
So what are we looking at here?
Here I have a list of all the different events that we organized over the last 3 years. By we, I mean myself, but more importantly, many other people who were here before me. One of those people was Stanisław Chłościński. He was the one who started now the biggest Polish forums about Jehovah's Witness, with ex-Jehovah's Witnesses.
So these we're talking about a group of activists who assemble and do things like public protests and that kind of thing.
Exactly.
So roughly what kind of numbers are we talking about in a given year?
Well, it's not that big, to be honest, because it's hard to put your face and name out there. Most people are not willing to do that, and I understand that totally. So at any given time, there were a few of us, like the core team, and then others would come and go, depending on the event. So, like in 2016 already, we went to the Polish Prime Minister's cabinet Stanisław had organized this meeting with some higher up official, and we prepared a presentation for them about Jehovah's Witnesses, so the government maybe could look into their practices, their harmful practices.
How did that go?
Well, it went well, but we didn't receive any official response, so
right.
I don't know if they proceeded on any of our recommendations.
Yeah.
Exactly. But they listened, and they were interested. Like they were surprised to hear many things, because obviously they didn't knew about them. One of the officials actually said he had witnesses in his family, and there were some problems, I think, with blood. So he was familiar with the matter. After that, we went and organized some protests. First, we started really small. We went and in this city, in this little city called Skarżysko-Kamienna, we had this kingdom hall, which was built illegally. It was very complicated, but basically there was this very lovely old JW who lended them his land and building, and this building wasn't fit to be a kingdom hall, so in papers it was like a barn or something. So it was a bit illegal, and then they adjusted the building without any permits, so it was even worse. And we went there and stood before the kingdom hall with signs to let the JWs know that, first of all, this kingdom hall is illegal, and second of all, it belongs to that person who is now an ex-JW, but the elders made it, they basically, they coerced him to sign something he didn't understand.
Oh, so maybe he
thought he rented the hall, not gave it off entirely.
So he claims he was tricked.
Yeah, exactly. So we went there and stood with signs, it was pretty fun. It was very unprofessional, but we tried our best to do something about this. Then, a year later, in 2017, we went to Wrocław, and that was our first big protest. We went to the city square, and we had signs. We even had this billboard.
Wow! So it's being towed by a car and everything.
It was towed, and it was going all around the city.
Who pays for this? This looks like it's quite expensive.
We gathered up, basically. There was one person who wants to remain unnamed, who gave most of the money, because he's also in a very tough spot. He cannot escape the cult at this point, but he has the funds to do something. So this is what he does. So we even had an ex-JW card with all our, the books that were written, the Crisis of Conscience, the leaflets.
You've got the Shepherd book.
Yeah, the Shepherd book there.
That's quite clever. I like that. It would be interesting to have a cart with just, the very latest 2019 Shepherd books there, so people can take them. Yeah.
So we had banners, and then we went to the city square, and there were quite a lot of people there just listening to what we wanted to say. We had a megaphone, and we just spoke about our experiences, like our personal experiences. We had those banners, we had leaflets. This is Piotr Andryszczak. This is a person who Szymon knows as well, and he had this. He's not a JW, he never was, but he has a very extensive website of their material and showing the discrepancies in their publications. So he went there with the original watchtower from 100 years ago, when they said that the world is going to end, and he showed that to the public. So this was very, very interesting. And then we went with the banners. Oh, that was also interesting, because we told everyone that on Saturday, I think, that on Sunday there is a meeting in one of the kingdom halls nearby. So we will stand before this kingdom hall just in silence, just smiling and showing our banners. And imagine that the congregation, it was like a kingdom hall complex. The congregation got direction from the branch office that they should move the meeting to Saturday, the day before, so we don't interfere with the meeting. So what we did, well, because we were there for 3 days, we went to the hall on Saturday as well. And we have footage with witnesses just passing by, looking at the card, looking at the shepherd book, looking at the publication. So you can see like the whole line of people. I think there were like 30 or 40 people there in the protest.
And this is at a kingdom hall?
This is the kingdom hall, exactly.
Right.
And this is like all us.
Could you show me you were saying about protesting at a convention?
Yeah. So that was the same year, just in summer. We had leaks from the convention, so we knew what would happen, what videos would be played, and so on.
Which year was it?
2017. So this was
the. It was Don't Give Up 2017, I think. Was it?
It was probably Don't Give Up. Well,
Remain Loyal to Jehovah, Don't Give Up, and then it was Be Courageous, I think.
Mm-hmm. Maybe. Yeah, Don't Give Up.
Okay.
So we had original badges,
So you had original badges printed. So you were protesting outside, but you were also going into the venue, were you?
Yeah.
And what were you doing inside the venue?
Just recording. Nothing else.
You weren't
really
disrupting the meeting.
No, absolutely. And we still got kicked out just for the recording.
Just out of interest, why wouldn't you disrupt the meeting?
Well, while still many people don't agree with this kind of activism, I believe that there is still a fine line between just peacefully protesting and saying things without any aggression, without any unnecessary emotions, without disrupting them, and just actively trying to make them miserable. I don't think this latter is the way to go. I think the former is. So that's why we were dressed like Jehovah's Witnesses and even had those badges. And even though we had a speaker, we didn't really yell at them. We just spoke about.
Yeah, that fascinates me. So you went inside, but even though you were making a very loud public protest outside, you say you draw the line at disrupting a religious event. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I don't believe that's the way to go, because they obviously felt persecuted even by us just standing there.
Yeah,
we've heard that all the time, that they are persecuted. What really excited us and surprised us, that when we were speaking, people were actually standing there on the railings, like here, and listening to what we are saying. I thought they will just, because there were some who would just plug their ears, physically plug their ears.
You would expect them to completely avoid. Yeah.
So for me, this shows that at least some, have the curiosity to at least hear what we have to say. And this is encouraging, because after the event, we did have some people who told us that this was one of the things that made them aware that something is up, and in the process wake up from the indoctrination.
The question I have is that you were saying earlier that you were terrified of questioning your beliefs the very first time that your wife started investigating, and you were scared of questioning your beliefs. Do you ever wonder whether that's the thought process going through the mind of people who are seeing you at the convention?
Well, I think that people are different, and while I was scared, My wife wasn't. So if we were there, maybe I wouldn't listen, but she would.
Do you think you, when you were indoctrinated, would have been intimidated by that?
Maybe yes. But my point is that while some people will say that this even strengthens their faith, that they are persecuted, others may be made to think about some things, because we really tried not to use like any apostate material in these presentations. Like we had obviously some banners like give us our families back, or about 1975, because that was the year when they said specifically from the platform that 75 didn't really happen. Like it was only preachers who did that, and we had printouts with those Watchtower magazines that specifically said about 75, about that this is the special year, that 6,000 years and everything. So we tried to just make them curious, like this banner, like Google Jehovah's Witnesses 1006.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah,
and it doesn't say
the
anything
1006 perpetrators at
if you Google that, you would get to the Royal Commission website immediately. And they didn't knew that, but if they tried, and many did, because I know they did, they would become interested in what is going on.
So you probably know that I'm extremely skeptical about protests, but I'm here in Poland to find out what activists are doing, and clearly something is working. I've heard that you're going to be doing a protest tomorrow. So do you mind if I come along and document what you guys are doing and ask members of the public what they think about the protest?
Of course.
Yeah, fantastic. It's been an absolute pleasure hearing your story. I really admire what you do.
Thank you. I do too. I admire what you are doing.
Thank you.